100,000. That's the number Jonathan Porter, the man the world calls Blueface, put on a kiss live, camera rolling, like a vending machine with a beard. Get us to 100,000 subs, he said, and we'll kiss. Meanwhile, the mother of 2 of his kids is 7 hours down a Nevada highway, getting her hair fixed by a man who isn't him. His newest girlfriend already has 1 foot out a door that's barely been open a month. And somewhere behind both of them, a woman named Rela just told his own mother she's naming the baby after her. For storylines, 1 week, and an 11-year-old on a video call just told her mother who her baby daddy is unprompted, like she was reading it off a form. That's not a headline. That's a filing cabinet that fell over. Real quick, before any of this gets sorted, if you're the type who bookmarks instead of just scrolling past, the sub button's right there, and the bell keeps you from missing the next drop when it lands, because this one's going somewhere. Here's what's on paper right now, no spin. Jonathan Porter, known to the world and to a rotating cast of exes as Blueface, is out of prison as of this July after a probation violation stretched tied to a 2021 North Hollywood case. His longtime on-again partner, Jaidyn Alexis, mother to 2 of his children, is currently in a public situationship with Bay Area rapper Bandz following a Las Vegas trip that included what multiple accounts describe as gunfire outside the venue they were at. A woman named Rela Coleman has publicly identified as pregnant by Porter and posted what she says are test results and text exchanges to back it. And a girlfriend known publicly only as Ashley has posted that she's stepping away from what she herself calls the circus. Which one of these is the actual headline depends entirely on which day you checked your feed. One more piece of the situation brief before the papers start stacking. Because context matters here, the venue tied to the Bandz night wasn't a nondescript club. It was Cloud 9 Hookah Lounge in Las Vegas, and Jaidyn was live streaming when shots rang out inside the building, not outside it the way the earlier framing suggested. That's a jurisdictional detail worth marking. Because Vegas is also where Porter's original 2021 case was tried, and where his probation was originally supervised, the state of Nevada shows up in 3 separate branches of the story, and the fact that Jaidyn's new relationship debut happens to be filmed inside a Nevada venue, while Porter's Nevada probation history is a matter of court record, isn't the kind of geography that stays quiet in the comments. And a second name that the opening brief didn't have room for, Nevaeh Akira, described by outlets and by Porter himself as his pregnant girlfriend across a period that overlaps with the Ashley run, the Rela situation, and the Jaidyn Kai fallout, meaning the first storyline's framing may actually undercount by 1. Start with the filing, because the filing doesn't care about anybody's feelings. May 25th, Porter posts a lengthy message on X about child support, the kind of post you write when you already know how it's going to read. If you have a kid and you need child support, you should probably just let the person who can best support the child have custody, he wrote. You're clearly not fit. A couple thousand a month ain't gone better your situation enough for the kid. No context given. No case number attached that anyone's found. Just a public post about custody, framed as financial logic, dropped into a feed that includes his own children's mother. The same week, not months later, the same window, his daughter Journey is on camera doing arts and crafts with her grandmother and her mother, and she brings up her baby daddy unprompted, like it's just part of the conversation now. We're not going to sit here and pick apart what an 11-year-old says on a live stream. That's a line we don't cross, full stop, but we will note the sequencing. Custody post, same week, kid repeating adult phrasing on camera. Nobody has to spell out what that says about what's being discussed in front of her. The paper does that on its own. Next exhibit, a live stream clipped and circulated by the account at Feared Buck shows Porter scrolling through posts about Jaidyn Alexis and a man identified only as Bravo, described elsewhere as Porter's former manager. Porter laughs at points, then goes flat, then says on camera, "That's not my B, no more," before ending the stream without another word. Reportedly, he then posted, and quickly deleted, a piece of intimate footage tied to the claim. We're not describing content nobody consented to have described. What we're noting is the delete. You don't delete something that doesn't land somewhere. Jaidyn's own response to the fallout. According to outlets covering it, was that she doesn't regret the entanglement at all. No apology. No damage control. Just a shrug in public. Add to the record what Jaidyn actually said out loud, because the specific wording matters. Alexis, on her own live stream reacting to the leak, stated, "Do I regret it? Absolutely the F***, not. It was revenge." That's not a person managing PR. That's a person establishing motive on the record. She also stated in the same stream, "I am very upset because I am a mother, obviously, and that is definitely something I would never have put out. Clearly, it's out of my control, a two-track message that draws the line clearly. The entanglement itself, no regret. The leak of the video, full objection. Two different filings inside one paragraph. One quiet chuckle. And there's a second tier, one receipt from the same window that everybody's been treating as a joke instead of a filing. Complex reporting on a Kick livestream Q&A Porter held with his pregnant girlfriend Nevaeh Akira, quotes Porter directly on how he handles his own STD screening. "She goes to the doctor for both of us. When she go in and she come back and say it's clear, that means I'm good. I don't even got to go get checked up." Same piece confirms the pregnancy itself was revealed live on Twitch a month earlier. A public sexual health outsource dropped inside a Q&A stream in the same broader window as the Rela pregnancy paper, the Jaidyn Bravo leak, and the Ashley exit. Nobody set out to file that, quote, next to the others. It just landed there. One more line from the complex piece deserves its own exhibit slot because it complicates the sequencing considerably. Per Complex, Porter had already publicly announced Nevaeh Akira had been cut from the roster a month before the pregnancy reveal, and Nevaeh had at that point wished him nothing but the best, just not with each other after a separate live stream with rapper Stunna Girl. The roster language isn't ours, that's his own vocabulary on the record, filed under his own byline of statements. Every time a partner in this configuration gets described, the noun gets industrial, not girlfriend. Not partner. Roster. Circus. Cut. And then there's Rela. Not a rumor, not a screenshot with shaky provenance. An actual document, an alleged positive pregnancy test with a listed expected delivery date, posted alongside what's presented as a text exchange with Porter from early April. Porter's own mother, Karlissa Saffold Harvey, responded publicly to the news. Not with denial, with a joke about handwriting fonts, closing with, "I'll take all that babies that pass the DNA test." That's a mother who has clearly done this math before. Okay, actually, hold up. Read that last part again. She didn't say if. She said all that babies, plural, like there's already a known count she's tracking. That's not a slip. That's a woman keeping her own internal ledger. Add one more filing to the stack before the overlay begins the sentencing record itself, because the runway leading into this whole week starts in a courtroom. Porter was handed a 4-year sentence in August 2024 for violating probation on the 2021 Las Vegas strip club shooting case. The original sentence out of that case, per Los Angeles Times reporting, was a suspended 24-month term stacked under 60 months of probation, meaning the 4-year prison stretch was the fallback trigger the judge had already loaded into the paperwork years earlier. And 8 News Now, citing jail records, listed a projected release date of July 2nd, 2024 on the earlier stretch before subsequent violations extended the timeline. One more court-adjacent detail lands on the same shelf. Reporting following his November 2025 release confirms he served 21 months on the 4-year sentence before coming home, immediately re-entering the Jaidyn/Krisian parenting configuration. The exact prison math isn't atmospheric here, it's the ticking clock underneath every entanglement that surfaced this month. So that's the filing. No connective tissue yet, just the paper on the table. A custody post, a kid repeating grown language, a deleted video, a pregnancy test with a due date, and a mother who talks about DNA results the way other people talk about weather. Now line it up. Start with the timing nobody's clocked, yet the custody post and the kids on camera comment landed inside the same 7-day window, not months apart the way these things usually drift. That's not incidental. Whatever conversation prompted that post was clearly already happening in the house, loud enough for an 11-year-old to absorb the vocabulary. The public post wasn't the start of that conversation. It was the leak of one that had already been running for a while. Then there's the Bravo situation sitting almost directly on top of the Jaidyn and Kai Bandz story, not before it, not after, inside it. Porters, that's not my BE, no more. Line reads like a man drawing a legal-sounding boundary around a relationship that, by every account, including his own family's commentary, ended a while ago. If it's already over, you don't need to publicly disown it. You disown things you're still attached to. And somebody in the comments is going to know this better than we do, because every trail we ran on the actual timeline of when Porter and Jaidyn's situation formally ended versus when the Bravo footage was filmed comes up soft. If you were following this in real time and have the dates straight, that's genuinely useful information. Drop it, because right now, the who is with who when is the one piece of this that doesn't fully reconcile. Here's the part that took a second read. Karlissa, the mother, is now positioned as the emotional throughline connecting at least 3 of Porter's active storylines. She's the one who responds to the Rela pregnancy news. She's the one whose name Rela allegedly wants to put on the baby. She's the one who shows up in the daughter's arts and crafts clip. In a story that's ostensibly about 4 different women and 1 man, the person appearing in the most receipts isn't the man. It's his mother. That's worth sitting with for a second before moving on. And Ashley's exit lines up with something too. She didn't post that she's leaving quietly and disappearing. She posted on the record that the same way that his whole life is for clips is the reason she's out, and that her run in the circus lasted 3 days, not the 365 some other partner might be able to claim. That's a person doing arithmetic on her own relationship in public, out loud, on camera. Whatever you think about it, that's not a woman who was blindsided. That's a woman who ran the numbers and got out at 3 days instead of staying for the full year. Pull on one more thread here, because it changes the shape of the overlay. Ashley's 3-day exit didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened right after a 3-day Catalina Island trip that outlets reported was live-streamed across consecutive days, and that at least one report explicitly framed as strategic content designed to make Kai Bandz jealous. Read that framing back slowly. Not to spend time with Ashley. To make somebody else's boyfriend jealous. If that framing is anywhere close to correct, then Ashley's exit line about 3 days versus 365 isn't primarily about Ashley being tired of the circus. It's about Ashley figuring out that she was casting for a role in somebody else's press cycle and quitting mid-shoot. The circus name doubles here, Porter's own repeated word from his own streams, weaponized by the woman who was cast in it, and then rebounded back at him by outlets covering her exit. When your own vocabulary becomes the tool people use to leave you, you've lost control of the terminology, and that's the earliest indicator in any storyline that the pattern has slipped the person managing it. One more overlay before past 3. Porter's Instagram account, per multiple outlets that week, went dark, reportedly banned after the video that ignited the Bravo storyline, with the ban itself arriving less than 24 hours after the deletion. That sequencing is the mechanic worth flagging. Post, delete, platform ban, reemergence on adjacent platforms. Every one of those beats is a decision. And the fact that the ban lands right on top of the deletion means the deletion didn't erase the exposure. It accelerated it, because a platform enforcement action on a specific piece of content is itself a signal that the content existed and reached the threshold that triggers enforcement. That's the mechanic underneath why delete doesn't function as damage control in this ecosystem anymore. Delete is now discoverable. Delete is now its own evidence. One thing at a time here, though. The 100,000 subs and will kiss, it deserves its own look, because that's not commentary, that's a receipt with a magnifying glass on it. Watch the clip closely, and it's not a joke that happened once. It's a bit that got run more than once across more than one live stream, with the number moving depending on the day. 1,000 subs here, 100,000 there, always tied to a subscriber count, never tied to an actual relationship milestone. That's not romance being reluctant. That's romance being metered against a KPI. Somebody built a content mechanic where affection is the reward tier, and it's dressed up as bashfulness. Zoom in tighter on Rela's baby name announcement, and the framing gets stranger. She said, publicly in response to backlash, that she can name her daughter whatever she wants, and that she's making both grandmas happy. Both, not one. The wording implies there's already a second grandmother in this configuration whose approval matters enough to mention in the same breath as Karlissa's. That's one clause doing a lot of quiet work about how blended this family tree already considers itself before the baby's even born. One more lens, and then we move the digital one. Porter's deleted video, the one connected to the Bravo footage, didn't stay deleted in the way things usually do. It got captured, re-uploaded, and is still circulating through secondary accounts days later. A delete button doesn't erase anything anymore. It just changes who's holding the copy. Add one more magnifier, a business lens, because there's a piece of paper underneath this whole configuration that keeps getting treated like decoration. The Barbie remix credited to Jaidyn Alexis featuring Blueface is published under MILF Music Company per the Spotify metadata on the track's own release page. Genius lyrics for the track carry the label call-out inside the song itself. Porter opens with the tag MILF Music, and per reporting on the label's origin, MILF Music was established in 2023, positioning Jaidyn's music career under Porter's guidance from the imprint's founding forward, which means every time Jaidyn moves on from Porter romantically, she's still under his imprint commercially. The label is the thing that doesn't get broken up when a live stream ends. That's the piece of business paper sitting underneath the personal paper, and it deserves its own line in the ledger because it changes what moving on can even mean structurally. You can leave a boyfriend. Leaving an imprint requires a different kind of exit paperwork, and there's no public indication anywhere that anything approaching that exit has been drafted. Then there's a behavioral magnifier the earlier passes barely touched, the recurring language across every one of Porter's own posts and streams. Roster. Circus. Cut. Wait her turn. The last one is directly attributable. He claimed on stream, per Instagram commentary, that Nevaeh had been removed from the roster for not being able to wait her turn. That's not a stray remark. That's a repeated administrative vocabulary applied to real people who show up on his platforms and inside his court filings. If somebody in the comments has been keeping a running list of every time he's deployed the roster framing across streams over the last 12 months, drop the count, because from where we're sitting, this reads like a rhetorical tick that got repeated so often it stopped registering as strange to the audience that hears it every week. And one audio lens beat before Pass 4 opens up, because the sonic layer of this saga has been mostly ignored. Porter's live streams, the Kick Q&A, the Bravo reaction stream, the Kiss Mechanic streams, all end abruptly in similar ways. The Times of India piece describes the Bravo stream as ending on camera without another word. The Kick Q&A that produced the STD quote also ended shortly after the Nevaeh laughter beat per Complex's reconstruction. It's a recurring exit signature, hit the punchline or the flat line, cut the feed. That's an editing pattern more than a broadcasting habit. Somebody who ends every stream on the beat that will clip, well, isn't broadcasting a life. They're producing an ongoing show, and the cuts are the shape of the show. Now, the version of this everybody's actually going to argue about in the comments. There are two competing frames running right now, and they're not fighting over the facts, they're fighting over which facts get the spotlight. Frame 1, the tabloid frame. This is peak dysfunction, a man cycling through partners while a mother has to physically show up to supervise a family outing, and the takeaway is just, look how messy this is. That frame isn't wrong exactly. It's just incomplete. It treats the chaos as the point instead of asking who benefits from the chaos staying loud. Frame 2. And you'll see this one in every fan camp thread defending Porter. He's just living his life. Everybody involved is grown. Why is the internet policing consenting adults? Respect that position for a second because it's not baseless. Nobody here is a minor in any of these entanglements, and adults dating multiple people isn't automatically a scandal. Here's where that frame runs into the paper. though. Consenting adults don't usually need a subscriber count kiss mechanic to negotiate affection in public. Consenting adults don't usually have a deleted then recirculated intimate video sitting in the middle of their situationship. And consenting adults don't usually have a minor child absorbing custody language inside the same "week of custody" post goes up. It's just adults living their lives. Defense holds fine right up until you notice how much of this is being staged for an audience that's being asked to subscribe, vote, and comment its way through somebody's actual custody arrangement. Add a third frame, because it's already loading in the timeline whether we name it or not, the redemption frame. This is the read pushed by outlets covering the November 2025 release cycle, exemplified by the framing of growth over grudges and the big boy sit-down staged directly after Porter got home. The verbs those pieces lean on are careful, reunited raising growth. The verbs they avoid are also careful. No mention of the roster vocabulary, no mention of the kiss mechanic, no mention of Nevaeh's pregnancy testing arrangement. That's not neutral framing. That's a curated verb list. And it's the frame that gets the most airtime from legacy hip-hop press, because it's the frame that fits the prodigal son comes home template every music outlet has run on some artist at least once. Recognizing it as a template doesn't invalidate it. It just means the template is doing more of the work than the reporting is. Fourth frame, the one the fan camps are typing right now, and it deserves its own Steelman. Everybody around Blueface is exploiting him for clout, and he's the actual victim in his own storyline. A specific headline in circulation goes further, suggesting the leaked Bravo footage was a setup and that Whack 100 or another industry figure orchestrated pieces of the timing to weaken Porter's standing during his release window. Steelman, that read honestly for a beat, because there is a version of the story where every person around him is running their own angle, and he's the last one to catch on. That framing accounts for Karlissa's timed one-liners, Rela's document rollout, Jaidyn's revenge on-record statement, and Ashley's mathematically precise exit, all of them running their own press cycles simultaneously. Here's where that Steelman collapses. A man who is genuinely the victim of an ecosystem exploiting him for clout does not, on the record, tell a live camera that his pregnant girlfriend handles his STD testing by proxy. That's the complex quote again, and it doesn't reconcile with the victim framing no matter how you angle it, because a person being exploited doesn't voluntarily generate the most quotable line of the week. He generated it on his own stream, with his own vocabulary. The custody post, same thing. Nobody made him post the clearly not fit phrasing to X on May 25th. The post is signed, time-stamped, and public on his own handle X, at Blueface Bleed'em. The Steelman requires you to ignore the receipts he authored himself, and once you stop ignoring them, the he's the victim frame runs out of paper before it runs out of runway. The mainstream read on all this is exactly what you'd expect. Another Blueface saga, filed under chaos, scrolled past by Thursday. That's the read that lets everybody off the hook, including the platforms hosting it. Different read. This isn't chaos. Chaos doesn't have a subscriber count kiss mechanic built into it. Chaos doesn't have 4 separate storylines that all happen to peak in the same 7-day stretch, each one dropping right as the last one's engagement started to cool. What's actually happening here is that at least one side of this, and increasingly it looks like more than one, has figured out that the relationship itself is more valuable as ongoing content than it would be as a resolved one. The custody post, the kiss for subs bit, the Bravo video getting deleted in a way that guaranteed it would spread further, not less. None of that reads like people trying to end a storyline. It reads like people managing one. Go back to the custody post for a second. That thing wasn't written by a man trying to quietly resolve a parenting dispute. It was written by a man who knows exactly how a "you're not fit" post performs in a comment section, and he posted it anyway in public where his daughter's name would inevitably get pulled into it. If the goal was resolution, you call a lawyer. If the goal is engagement, you post to X. Add another layer of the defense here, because the receipts stacked in Pass 2 and Pass 3 haven't been called back yet in the verdict. The MILF Music imprint anchoring Jaidyn's release catalog to Porter's business apparatus. The roster vocabulary applied on camera to living human beings. The suspended sentence structure that made the 4-year prison term a preloaded trigger inside the original 2023 order. Every one of those pieces of paper predates this specific news cycle by months or years. None of them are the product of the current chaos. They're the scaffolding the chaos is being staged on top of. The chaos is theater. The scaffolding is the business. And the get to 100,000 subs and we'll kiss bit isn't romantic reluctance. It's a monetization lever wearing a relationship as a costume. Every time that number moves, so does the audience's incentive to push it higher, which means the affection itself becomes the reward currency for platform growth. That's not two people being shy on camera. That's a creator economy mechanic operating inside what's being sold to viewers as a real relationship. Karlissa showing up at Universal Studios wasn't a mom checking in. A mother who wants to genuinely check on her grandchild does it without a camera rolling and without the visit becoming its own clip cycle days later. The fact that it became its own storyline, the awkward exchange, the ticket scanner bit, the "I'm Rela's mother" line getting its own edit, tells you the visit itself was built to be content the moment it started, not stumbled into as content afterward. And Ashley's exit line deserves credit it's not getting. 3 days versus 365 isn't just a breakup quote. It's a woman explicitly naming the ratio of real time to perform time in this arrangement and doing the math out loud specifically so it would circulate. She wasn't trying to disappear quietly. She was trying to be the one clean receipt in a stack of everybody else's spin. And depending how you're reading this, that's either the smartest exit anyone's made in this saga or the loudest possible way to announce you're leaving the circus while still performing for it on the way out. Somebody's going to say Rela's due date and the both grandma's line are just innocent details getting overanalyzed. Maybe, but innocent details don't usually come packaged with a document showing an expected delivery date posted to social media before most people announce a pregnancy to extended family. That's not an accident. That's a rollout. A few more jabs before the pivot closes because the paper deserves them. The Kick Q&A quote about STD testing being outsourced to Nevaeh's prenatal appointments. That's a filing about the value Porter assigns to his partner's medical labor, and no amount of he was joking recovery gets around the fact that he said it on a monetized stream to an audience actively subscribed to hear him say things exactly like it. The Krisian rock branch of this configuration, the one earlier passes barely touched because it's technically a different arc, quietly re-entered the ledger the week Porter came home, per multiple outlets covering the reunion with Krisian Jr., which means the 4 storylines framing at the top of this filing was already undercounting from paragraph 1. The actual number is at least 5 if you count Nevaeh, at least 6 if you count the Krisian adjacent branch, and the audience is being asked to keep track of all of them simultaneously while a subscriber counter ticks up in the corner of the screen. And 1 dry 1 for the ledger. For a man whose public documents include an ex-post about who's not fit to parent, the total count of on-record statements from him containing an actual parenting plan, as opposed to a jab, a monetization mechanic, or a stream cut on the punchline, appears to round to 0 across everything we surfaced this week. Somebody in the comments will find one and prove us wrong on that, and if you do, drop the link, because a real parenting plan on the record would actually change part of the read here. So here's the lean. Every person in this story who's currently getting called messy is actually the most in control of their own narrative right now. Ashley named her exit ratio out loud. Rela posted her own paper trail before anyone else could frame it for her, and Karlissa's one-liners have been sharper and more strategically timed than anything Porter himself has said all month. The only person in this whole configuration who looks genuinely reactive instead of managed is Porter. Everyone around him appears to be running their own press cycle. He's the one still improvising his. What happens from here doesn't require a crystal ball. It requires reading the pattern that's already in motion. The likeliest landing, Rela's pregnancy, gets confirmed publicly with more documentation as the high-risk framing continues to surface, and Karlissa's involvement deepens rather than fades. Watch for her to become the de facto family spokesperson on this pregnancy, specifically the same role she's already occupying across at least 2 other storylines. By the time a due date actually arrives, expect Karlissa's commentary to have generated more engagement than Porter's own statements about the child. That's not a guess. That's just extending a pattern that's already 3 for 3. Extend that cascade forward one more click. Once Rela's documentation firms up, watch how Nevaeh's parallel pregnancy, already reported by Complex as confirmed via Twitch and by Hot New Hip Hop as under paternity test scrutiny from Nevaeh X, gets pulled into direct comparison with Rela's on the same feeds. By the time a paternity result on either child lands publicly, don't be shocked when Karlissa's account is the first to post commentary on it, because that's the ledger position she's already claimed across every prior storyline. The next window will also almost certainly bring an in-person meet or a public exchange between Rela and Nevaeh, not because either woman wants it, but because the audience following both storylines will manufacture the incentive for one to happen on camera. Once that meet hits, expect the framing across mainstream outlets to shift from Blueface saga to something with one of the 2 women's names in the headline, which will be the first sign that Porter has permanently lost narrative custody of his own storyline. The wild card, Jaidyn and Kai Bandz's situationship, born out of a Vegas trip with gunfire attached to it, doesn't fade, it turns into an actual joint release. There's already a Barbie remix history between Jaidyn and Porter, and the industry playbook here is well worn. Turn the relationship drama into a single before the drama turns into old news. Don't be surprised if a Jaidyn and Kai Bandz track drops within the month specifically timed to whatever headline is loudest that week. If it does, that's not romance leaking into music. That's music using romance as a marketing hook, same as the Kiss for Subs bit, just with a release date attached. Extend that scenario too, because the label paper matters. Any Jaidyn Kai Bandz release will have to answer a question no fancamp thread is asking yet. Is it dropping through MILF Music, the imprint Porter runs and under which Jaidyn's Barbie remix was released, or through Kai Bandz's own label infrastructure, or through a neutral third party? The answer to that question decides which storyline the release actually belongs to. If it drops on MILF, it's a Porter product with Kai Bandz as featured talent, regardless of who's on the hook. If it drops elsewhere, that's Jaidyn's actual imprint exit, executed via feature credit rather than via formal announcement. Watch how the label line reads on the release, because that one metadata field carries more information about the state of the Porter-Jaidyn business relationship than any live stream in the last 12 months. And once X hits, once the release drops, expect Porter to comment on it publicly within 48 hours, because staying silent on it would signal a level of business separation his own vocabulary has never acknowledged. And the residue, the part that outlasts the specific news cycle, is Journey. Not as a storyline, as a fact. A kid who's now old enough to repeat custody vocabulary on camera is going to keep growing up inside a family where every domestic conversation has a non-zero chance of becoming a clip. That's not a prediction that resolves in a week. That's the thing that's still sitting there long after Rela's baby is born and Ashley's exit is old news and Kai Bandz has moved on to the next headline. The people cycling in and out of the story get to leave when they choose to. The kids in the middle of it don't get that option. By the time the youngest child in this configuration is old enough to type their own name into a search bar, every one of these live streams will still be indexed, still be discoverable, and still be available to be surfaced by any classmate, any date, any future employer with a passing curiosity. That's the 5-year aftershock nobody's currently pricing in. The engagement numbers spike and fade in a week. The digital record is permanent. And if we're being honest about what this ledger actually costs, the cost isn't paid by Porter or Jaidyn or Ashley or Rela or Nevaeh or Kai Bandz. The cost is paid by the specific kids whose names, faces, and offhand livestream quotes are being permanently indexed against a saga they didn't consent to appear inside. Don't be shocked when the first serious public reckoning on this specific case doesn't come from a hip-hop outlet at all. It'll come from a mainstream family court reporter, a child welfare advocate, or a documentarian who wasn't inside the fan camps when the receipts were being posted in real time. By the time that reckoning lands, half the participants will have moved on to new storylines. The paper trail won't have moved anywhere. 3 predictions, 3 different clocks. One of them you can check by the end of the month. One of them you'll be able to verify in a delivery room. And one of them you won't be able to check for years, which is exactly the kind of prediction nobody wants to sit with, but somebody should. Real quick before we close this out, if you've got the actual timeline on when the Bravo situation started relative to when Porter and Jaidyn's relationship formally ended, the comments are open and we're reading every one of them. Because that's the one gap in this paper trail we couldn't fully close. That's the filing as it stands right now. New papers still surfacing on this one, so if the next chapter drops before we're back, you'll want the bell on for it. Like it if the receipts held up, subscribe if you want the next case when it lands, and if you've got a document the team should see, the comments are always open.